presentation is about the exceptions and the trade-offs of working with Scrum.
Okay. Hello. So I'm Dumitru Negrea. I'm a software engineer with more than 15 years of experience in the software industry. I'm also a certified Scrum Master since 2012, yes. And during my career, I've been working with various applications and in various domains, ranging from desktop application, embedded systems, telecommunications, web applications, and so on. So after all these years, I'm still agile. I like the guy in the next slide. So he took a Scrum Master to the knee, and probably he can barely walk. The agenda for today, I will briefly outline that Scrum is not a straitjacket, some red lines in Scrum, dealing with exceptions and trade-offs and alternatives. First, I must emphasize that when using agile methodologies, you must keep in mind that the end goal is the most important the success of the project is the most important, not just complying to some rules, and if those rules and procedure cause interruptions and productivity issues, you need to address those issues, and there are situations when you cannot apply the methodologies by the book. When using Scrum, your hands are not tied. You have the free to move, and you can handle exceptions. You need to be prepared to handle such exceptions, and there are some aspects where you cannot apply some trade-offs. There are some red lines that causes, for example, the dropping of the sprint. So we come here to requirements. I don't know if you can read. Some guy, probably the customer here, he says the project's requirements are forming in my mind, and then now they're changing. Okay, no, wait, changing now. Naturally, I won't be sharing any of these thoughts with engineering, and the other guy says I budgeted for some goose to beat it out of you, so of course it's a joke, right? I must say that it's very important to deal properly with requirements and document those. I can provide an analogy, maybe it's a bit extreme, but imagine building a house. So you have the customer of the house telling you to repaint the walls. So this is kind of acceptable and does not have so high cost. But imagine if after the house is almost built, the customer says that he doesn't like the first floor. So practically you need to demolish the house. So this has huge cost. Of course, this is kind of extreme, but you can meet situation when changing the whole architecture and the whole requirements imply huge costs. Also, I must stress out here the importance of documentation. I've noticed that in the software industry, people are afraid of writing documentation. This is a bad thing, and that this somehow got into the Scrum methodologies, taking advantage of this kind of a passion of the people for writing documentation. It's good to have minimal documentation, especially for requirements, for the architecture of the system, and so on. I can give you another analogy for this. Imagine a symphonic orchestra playing by ear a symphony. So it might happen that some guy, even if he knows, he learned before and play by ear, he can play that symphony, but it's enough that one member of the orchestra plays the wrong note. Then for a listener that has a sound, and for a person that knows that symphony, it's a bad thing. It will sound. It's possible to learn it by heart, but here the analogy with the software industry is that, of course, more or less everybody knows how to program. The orchestra members knows each member of the orchestra knows how to play an instrument, but he needs a document, the musical score. I will discuss some red lines in Scrum. I'm only mentioning few of those major changes during sprint. So red line is a situation that causes some bad effect to the project. It can block the development and things like that. So one of these red lines is when changing the sprint significantly, and you do not have the space to accommodate those changes. So in this case, you will drop the sprint. Another thing is micromanagement, when client or even the local manager, the supervisor of the team, tries to control every detail of work and does not give a room for action for the employee domain of competency. So everybody should be empowered to do things in his domain. So I won't get into details, but micromanagement is a bad thing and should be avoided. Another thing is changing the requirements after the planning is done, or even worse, if the implementation has already started. So in this situation, you will need to drop the sprint, drop everything, even the work that has been done, everything is cancelled. You go back to the planning and create a new sprint planning. So I will briefly overview exceptions in sprint planning, estimates, the meetings over time, and some adjust and improve guidelines. So for sprint planning, all the team members should participate after the team is mature and they get used to the project. With the project is stable. It's not necessary to involve all the team members, only the relevant ones. So an exception that I mentioned earlier is changing some tasks, some tickets in the current sprint. If this cannot be accommodated, you will need to drop the sprint. So we come to estimates. So I will read this for you. So the team gathers and said, one guy says, we have to increase velocity. Yeah, increase velocity, how can we do that? So bigger estimates, definitely bigger estimates. Everybody is happy. But this is masking a problem in the sprint, in the teamwork, in the processes. For example, it masks frequent interruptions. For example, most of the team members are contacted via Skype by the customer or by some other team members, and they are asked for support and they are interrupted. And there was a study that each interruption will cause a 15 minutes loss for context switching. Probably the American scientists did that, but it is true that interruptions will bring the whole work will lead to low productivity. So in these cases, it's better to allow some space for such support issues. So this could be included in planning. You will not need to increase the estimate just to accommodate those interruptions and support stuff and so on. And also, practice has shown that a focus factor, that is the time in a day that a person can focus on the backlog tickets is around 75%. So around 6 hours should be taken into account per person per day. So during 6 hours, that's a focus factor of 75%. During 6 hours, this productivity work can be done. So these are kind of perfect hours. If you're taking a higher focus factor, then you might come in the situation that you cannot complete the tasks in the sprint. So meetings in Scrum, stand-up demo retrospective meetings, not a good idea to drop them. These are some places, this is an opportunity for everybody to communicate, to raise problems. The retrospective meetings are very important. At the end of the sprint, everybody can raise issues and suggest improvements. All the team members should participate. Overtime. Frequent overtime is a sign of poor management. So it causes loss of productivity, frustration, and doing this frequently will bring bad results to your project. This can be accepted in some exceptional circumstances, but this will need to be discussed case by case and with everyone that is involved. I can give you a personal example of this. A few years ago, I was working for quite a complex project. It was now that Mihai mentioned desktop application written in Perl, it was a mobile modern platform build tools written in Perl. It was practically a build tool that had an installer and was running on desktop. So we were having a major release, and we were asked if we could work overtime 2 hours during the working days. So this was for a whole month. So we discussed with the team, we accepted that, and after a few weeks I was having a blocker issue. I couldn't find a solution. I spotted the problem, tried different things, but nothing worked. So one day in the morning, this came to obsess me, and I was thinking almost all the time about this. And I was walking to the office. By the way, it's a good thing to walk to the office if you can for a few minutes. So I was walking to the office, and this idea popped up out in my mind, and I said, I will try this first thing in the morning. So when I got to the office, I tried this, and it worked. But the conclusion is that if I was not that tired, I would have found the solution much sooner. So overtime is not a good practice. That's what I want to emphasize. So when you notice anything that goes wrong, you need to signal this and together with the team find solutions to adjust and improve. I'm mentioning some examples here, but of course these are not exhaustive. Code review, automated test, continuous integration, and so on. Another thing, when you have large uncertainties in the project, you have a new project or a new module, a new major change, and you do not know how to approach it. You don't know even what needs to be done. So in this situation, you can use a spike, a so-called spike, that is used to analyze the work that needs to be done. This can be a task in the sprint, or if it's about a large piece of work, it could take up to an entire sprint only for making an analysis and find a technical solution, how to integrate with the existing application or and other implications. So this can be used as a last option as an entire spike sprint, but it can be as well a task in the sprint, a spike for a bigger story. As I mentioned, you can drop the sprint in some situation. This is not a situation caused by a red line. This is caused by, for example, a major release. So after a major release, you can have various issues, and if you're not willing to drop all the release and roll it back, you can drop the sprint, so you're not planning anything, and use some Kanban approach. I won't get into details for this, but this is in short terms, it's just-in-time delivery. It can be well coupled with continuous delivery. In that situation, you need, for example, a release every hour or every day, because that issue needs to be addressed quickly. So in this kind of situation, you can drop the sprint and work in a Kanban approach. As a conclusion, keep in mind the end goal and do not stick to the rules if this affects the success of the project. When the procedure that you are using are not producing the expected results, then you need to adapt, to adjust, and improve. So this is it. Any questions?
How long should a Scrum take in time? 10 minutes? Or
You mean the stand-up meeting?
Yeah, the stand-up meeting, yeah. What's the best time span for it?
It should be as short as possible. So during this meeting, you're not resolving the problems. You're just signaling the problems. So every team members will say what he's working, what has he done already, what he will work today. If there's something that stops him, for example, he cannot access a remote machine, the UAT, for example, or things like that, this will need to address after that meeting. So during that meeting, you are not resolving problems. You're just signaling. You're providing a status update of your work, and you signal if there's anything that prevents you to accomplish your tasks. So this should be kept as short as possible. But it's not a good idea to drop it completely.
And what do you think product owners and product managers should participate in this daily stand-up?
It depends. It can be, if it's a new project, then maybe the product owner will want to participate. But there's no restriction. If he wants to participate every day, then there's no problem. But the most important persons are the Scrum Masters and the Scrum team. So these are all considered equals. It's not, Scrum Master is not a manager or something. All the team members are equal. So, but of course anybody could participate in those meetings. Everybody in the Scrum team, including product owner. For the demo, it's a good idea to have all the team members involved, because it creates responsibility, and also it creates satisfaction that their work is acknowledged and probably appreciated in this demo meeting. So, any other questions? Okay, we can discuss at the pier if you have more questions. Thank you.